Hi, I'm very much around. Thank you so much. It's being recorded, so I'm going to watch my language as well. Two things. I think I hope you can hear me clearly. That's one part because Megha, I thought there was some kind of a voice disturbance when you were talking, and I'm not too sure whether my network is poor or it could be the other way around. Having said that, at any point, if you all do feel that, okay, somebody said, Neha, thank you, I'm audible, so that's good. Um, in between, I might put my video off because I can see the screen which has my picture. That's a much younger version of me, and I think that's a better one that you can look at rather than the one that you can see live here. I'm hoping to share with you some of my experiences, which is a lot of gyan sometimes. But if that makes sense from a learning point of view, because I learn from the initiatives that I work on. At the outset, a rider apology. I'm in a place which is quite noisy right now. It's a place which I will not share where I am, but it's very public office space. I managed to get a corner room and requested them if I could use a corner space in that room. So there might be some disturbance which might keep taking place, but I'm hoping I do justice to this session. Megha has been very kind enough to really lift my spirits to say there's a overwhelming response to to the talk today, and I can start with the fact that it's not necessarily the person who's talking, but it could be the subject that always excites people. Um, not not a lot of people do go and watch a Salman movie, but people also go because they like the movie. Okay, so let's move away the Salman for a moment and let's look at the cause. And I've put together a presentation here, though I rather believe in conversations. Presentation is only when you start feeling that I'm going to be very boring, so you can look at the screen and say, okay, let's look at the screen for a moment also. So let's move to one of the slides. The next one, whoever's Mega and DS, if any one of you has handled the slides, if you can move to the next slide, please. Can I
Is this the
request
one,
one of you
Shishir?
to move the slides?
Yes. Is this not moving? I am on the India against
No, it's
corruption.
not moving. I don't know about the others.
Okay, let me share again.
I can still.
Sorry, I'll share again.
So anyway, let me. In the meanwhile, as slides keep moving, what I'm going to talk about is our different initiatives that we've done. Um, why some of these have clicked and why some of them. There are initiatives which have not clicked also. Yes, now I can see the slide, and this is the context which I was starting off. First of all, thank you very much, India Welfare Trust, Venkat, of course, whom I really like and look up to, DS and Mega, who've been so very dear, and the craziness that we've all worked together during Dan Utsav and otherwise. Uh, you can ignore the traffic behind me. These are not volunteers, but these are people doing different things. Go to the previous slide only as to this slide. So some of you may remember what happened many years ago when, of course, today AAP is a national political party, but many years ago when a lot of people went to Delhi, supporting what was called the India Against Corruption, and it wasn't as much and kind of appeal for people to say, okay, let's go to Delhi and stuff like that. 9 on 10 or 7 on 10 of the millions who traveled to Delhi for this rally went because they wanted to go for a cause. Okay, and they went there because they felt they resonated with the issue that was there, and they said, I want to be part of it. Now, which is what boils down to what I was talking about in the very beginning, that there might be a Salman, but then there might be a Shahrukh, there might be an Amir, but finally the storyline has to be exciting enough for people to go there. You might go there for a short while just because the person may be interesting enough, but if the cause is not exciting enough, then you are not going to stay there for too long. And whatever that we do in the space of volunteering, if there are, I can see 82 in the numbers here, that if I have to get 82 people excited, of the 82, maybe 30, 40, 50 people will say, okay, Shishir, I know you, so because you've invited me, I'm going to come in. But for you to stay longer, the second time around, you'll say, okay, I know you have done this, but for me to stay longer, I want to do this. I got disconnected for a moment, I think. So some of you will come back because of the affinity to the person, but most of you will will move away because you don't feel as excited with the cause. So, in the whole scheme of things, the cause, the purpose, the idea has to be exciting enough for somebody to volunteer. Because when you're volunteering your time, you're volunteering your energy, and you're volunteering your credentials, your own persona that's going, that you're going to say, I went there. So there are a few other people that who are going to work to say that, we are part of it, and then they follow, they respect you, and people say, where did you go? You know what, I went for a beach cleanup. Or where did you go? I helped somebody distribute food. And that means that you are kind of offering your credibility to that other cause, which means the people who are associated with it, and so on and so forth. So that's where you need to look at, and that's where I'm looking at, let's say, the India against corruption. Can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah. This is almost something similar to what happened many years ago when Mumbai got attacked. Now, 26th of November was when the city got attacked. Exactly 1 week later, which was a Wednesday, the Indian Army went to the Gateway of India, and they went on a silent morcha to the Gateway of India to offer a floral tribute, a solidarity. Now, what happened was, a lot of media. I happen to be a journalist. I think Megha has mentioned that to me. I happen to be a journalist at that point, and my voice is lagging. Can you try switching on off the video, maybe? Okay. So can you hear me now? Okay. I'll continue talking so if you can see me, hear me at least. So many of you at that point went there. A lot of journalists claim credit that we were the ones who were responsible for hundreds and thousands of people going to the Gateway of India. They took credit for it. Now, I'm not saying they were right or I'm not saying they were wrong, but for a lot of people who went there, they didn't really go because somebody told them to. Like, I would say, will you come? Somebody will come, somebody will not. Same thing what I mentioned, from a person-based support and a cause-based support. But 9 on 10 people went to the Gateway of India because they resonated with the feeling to say, I like what's happening and I want to offer my support to the cause. And that's why they went there, that's why they stayed, and they spoke about it to a few other people. So volunteering is not only about, now I'm talking about volunteering and volunteering about scale. So I volunteer, so I go, but I volunteer because I like, and because I like, I also talk about it. And that also becomes a very important component of volunteering. That, am I interested in only getting one people, two people, three people, or am I looking at scaling up what I wish to do? And to scale it up, I need to get that person excited. You go to a restaurant, you eat food, you come back home, matter ends. But you go to a restaurant, eat food, and you tell other people, oh, this place has great food. And then you say, okay, I think I like that food, and he told me the place is great. So you go there, you go to another town and say, you know what, I went to Mumbai and I ate at that place. That's how the word of mouth travels, and that's how more people, that's what it's called, a viral effect of something good that you're doing. That's something good. So people enjoy a story if the story is told well. So it boils down to, am I a good storyteller? Now, I can be a good storyteller if I know a good story. And to know a good story is what finally boils down to the cause. That, am I as much interested in the cause? Am I putting that heart and my heart out into the cause? And then, can I narrate that story? I don't know how many of you watched this movie called Mr. Natwarjan. Amitabh Bachchan has these children in front of them, has these children in front of them, and he's narrating a story where he sings a song called Ghane Jangalon Se Guzarta Hua Kahin Ja Raha Tha. Okay, the way he sings that song, he's got these children captivated. He recreates that entire magic for people to believe that, okay, there actually is a sher in front of them, and sher upar gaya niche aaya bhaga. Look at the expression on the faces of these children, and he starts believing that this is what is happening. They start believing what's happening. Now, when I'm saying I, means any of us sitting here, create a volunteering opportunity. It's not just about, okay, go there, do this, do what you want, and come back. You go do something, come back, and then have a shared experience, and tell other people, uh, which is what leads to scale. Okay. I think one of the points that got mentioned was the Hamara Station Hamari Shan. It's a classic and a beautiful experience on mass volunteering, and I'll give you the history behind that. Danotsav is a great place for scalability for a lot of people to do time and interest in volunteering. When we were discussing, I think it was 2016, 15 or 16, that we were discussing what can we do for Mumbai, and that typically happens before every Danotsav. Groups meet and then they think and who's doing what. And through one of the discussions, the discussion about beautification came up, and then came up an organization called um, Making a Difference Foundation came in. Okay, now that's another aspect which I'd like to bring in, that when we do things, we also need to be collaborative and to bring in specialists. Am I a jack of all, or am I a specialist in some space? If I'm a jack of all, there's only that much I can do. There are specialists for everything that happens. So how did we plan it out? There was a specialist organization which is Mad Foundation. They had already beautified a station. They already knew how to beautify a station, and there they joined hands with the larger team, which is the Danutsav team, which brought in the idea of let's do something for others. Till that time, Mad Foundation had done a particular station because they knew that geography well, so they were specialists in that space. They came in contact with a group of people which was interested in doing and serving the community. So that's two groups joining hands. And then part of that, multiple specialists also came in, one of them being me, who looked at scaling up the idea. Because the scaling up also comes from living in a city like Mumbai. I don't know some of you who understand the city. It's huge. It's a country in itself. So looking at the way the stations are, which they call the lifelines of Mumbai. So if you do something in a particular area of Bombay, the next geography will not even know what's really happened. As they classically point out, sometimes neighbors don't know what's happening in the building as well. Many days later, you suddenly realize there was a tragedy that took place, or celebrations, of course, because of the noise we come to know. Very often, we don't know tragedies taking place, or who's my next neighbor, and which is how Bombay's life also is. A Goregaon station, which is a western suburb station, if you do something there on the central side, let's say Chembur station will not know what's happened in Goregaon, because I never need to travel to Goregaon, or I never need to travel to Chembur. And which is when, through the conversation, when we spoke to the Mad Foundation, I was with the organization called Mumbai First at that point, and I said, why don't we do all the stations? Now, that is part of foolhardiness, if I would call it that way, or it's part of what we say risk taking. To say, okay, why don't we scale it up? But scaling up can also happen when you have a collaborative approach, a mindset, and a receptive mindset. I can put my hand in front of you and say, hi, how are you? But if you're not going to accept my hand, the story ends there. So I need the willingness to collaborate, to scale up has to be there. The willingness and acceptance to collaborate has to be there as well. But that can't happen in the first level. You need to take it forward, and talk to multiple people. It's like you go to a social gathering and you meet 10 people. There's no guarantee that you're going to meet all 10 people whom you get along well with. But you meet one person, you talk to that person, and you don't get along well with the person, the story ends. You think, okay, I will collaborate with two organizations, then you talk to two people. But if both the people have turned down your offer, the collaboration is ended. So you talk to as many people as possible. That speaks of the willingness that somebody like you can have. And the random conversations, map it all. Please also remember that everybody has a multi-dimensional personality. I'm just looking at the screen right now. Here, there's a name called Pranesh here, or there's Namita here, or there's Nirmala here, or there's Rohini here, or Raghunandan here. Now, Raghunandan may be maybe a singer, and he may be running an organization. So if we examine ourselves, we each one of us has a multi-dimensional personality. experience and a personality. So if I say, okay, Raju or Raju V, if I say Raju, okay, what else do you do other than the work that you're doing? And if I start having a conversation with you, unfortunately we are very transactional in our life. That I finish the work, Raju, what are you doing? You say, okay, I run a nutrition based support. Okay, I feel this is fine. The conversation gets over. उसके बाद बात आगे नहीं जाती है. Definitely, Raju, tell me more about what you do. And you say, Raju say, you know what, I also teach children. Or Raju might say, you know what, I also like to play music in my pastime. Now, the more I have a conversation with, I realize that there's so much more to Raju than just feeding children. I'm just giving an example right now. And can we start having these conversations with different sets of people, start mapping these elements down, and realize that as I start talking to people, I've got a multi-dimensional strength available with me. And which is what the Hamara station, Hamari Shan element came in. So first was, if we have to do one station, what all do we need? So the specialist partners in us, which is the BAD Foundation, they said, you know what do you need when you paint a station? Some of these things are elementary, and some of these things are new to me. So yes, obviously you need paint. So obviously you need money to buy paint, which means you need sponsors. Obviously you need stations. So some of these things are, मतलब खाना खाने के लिए तो खाना तो चाहिए, but I mean plate चाहिए. So in that you need stations. So that means you need permissions. Then you need to paint, you need brushes. To paint, you need designs. For that, you need artists. To paint, you need other facilities. And then if you're people of different age groups, then you need safety equipment, and so on and so forth. But then you say, okay, who will explain something to us? Then you need a civil painting guy or a civil contractor who will say, okay, you can't just go paint a wall. You need to identify a wall. You need to map the wall. And you need to, if there's a, what kind of paint, that also has a science in itself. So as we started talking to different people, we realized that um, are there. So if you can see out here that we got different. Can we move on to the later slides also? Because point out that some of these things are out there in the slides. Okay. So this is a different initiative. So okay, I'll come back to the previous one, the painting one. And as we started mapping, we realized that every station in itself required 15 different groups of specialists, and we all had to do was, we started to get 10 people. Out of the 10 people, somebody said that I'm an artist, or somebody says I know somebody who's an artist, or somebody else said that I know somebody who can help me get brushes. So things that I needed, I realized that I have some of these things available in my network. Um, so so this is broadly where the whole space was. To scale up a initiative, you need to be able to have conversations with different kinds of people, and then you need to move forward. I'll give a similar example. Is what we have, the plastic. So just for a moment, Megha, if you can go to the previous slide, I'll just explain the last part of what the station project was all about. If you see, different stations, different groups, different groups of people were brought in to scale up an idea. We got film stars involved, and none of these came in because we knew them. We all created a sense of idea, saleability, design, inclusivity, and then scale it up to get people involved. Can we move forward, please? Um, and each of these things we have different initiatives that we picked up. We've got plastic recyclathon that we talk about, or if we can move to the next slide, or we have the beach cleanups. What I will try to explain in the things that we do is, the idea has to be interesting, but not interesting to me. It has to be interesting to the person who's being part of. So a lot of things, sometimes we say, I like an idea. But the moment I start talking to different people, then they say, okay, but this is what I like and this is what I don't like. And then we also look at solutions. For instance, if I have to do a beach cleanup, somebody within the group says, but what time and what day? Can I might say, let's do it on Wednesday because I'm free on Wednesday, but most people are not on Wednesday. So a beach cleanup can happen on a Sunday. Then what time of a Sunday? I might want to do it on a Saturday. As I start having conversations, I realize the morning time is better or afternoon time is better. So we look at different things, and all these things, scalability can take place once you start having more and more conversations with people. Can we move to the next slide, please? The point that I'm always trying to raise is things which I've spoken out. Ki you need to talk to different groups of people. You need to reach out to people in as many forms as possible. You need to talk to different experts to refine that idea in a different way. Just give an example. Project Mumbai is lucky in that sense that it's got a wide range of initiatives. Some of you may not have those many initiatives. You might be only in healthcare or only in nutrition or only in a subject. But within that also, if you want to scale up, then you need to break up that idea into multiple elements and then get people to own up that particular area. I'll give you a simple example. During COVID, one of the things that we did was distribution of food. Now, how do I get volunteers involved? Now, we might think that, okay, you need volunteers only to distribute food. No, the moment we created a distribution food pattern, we realized identifying areas is important. So we asked people around who understands Andheri better, who understands Goregaon better. So we started getting champions of geography. Then as we started distributing food, we realized that chapatis and sabjis are not good enough. We need khichdi's that can, because khichdi stays longer in a pack, whatever. So we got food specialists involved and they started becoming the food experts in that space. Then there were people, we needed somebody who could tell us about packaging. So packaging experts, and these are all volunteers, people giving their time. So once you break down an idea into different spaces, you will realize that there are a lot of people willing to offer their time and expertise. It's just that nobody has asked them to. So what you need to do is to create a idea, discuss that idea, refine it further, and then break it up into various subsections, and then put the word out and say, okay, can you take ownership for something like this, or would you like to take ownership of something like this? So while I gave you an example of nutrition and food distribution during COVID, I could talk about mental health, for instance. During COVID, that's a very specialized space that you, it's not only mental health experts who gave their time. There are, as one says, that even experts gave their time, but people who could create data that they gave their time. People who could do outreach, they gave their time. But it was for mental health. It was a very specialized space, and the same single idea had to be broken up into various subsections to get more and more people involved, and then different age groups. If I have an idea and if I need to involve people across age groups, I can break it up into what can children do in it, what can elderly people do it, what can the working class do in it, and then take it across. And then, however small it is, my contribution could be just 10 minutes or 20 minutes. But if I, the moment I contribute, I start getting excited and I say, I'd like to do more. There is a kindness element in every human being. Can I tap onto that kindness of the person and see whether I can take it forward? Move to the next slide, please. So I've already spoken of this point about breaking the idea into multiple elements and get owners for each of this. And um, partnerships is linked to breaking of this idea into different spaces. That if each of these, for instance, when I'm doing something in the painting space, when we did the railway station painting, we did it twice. We did it once during 19 in 2016 when we did Hamara Station, Hamari Shan, and during COVID when it was the worst lockdown that was taking place, we did the Hamara Station initiative again. Now partnerships is about specializations of various activities. Design groups can be partners, paint groups can be partners, the civil contractors groups can be partners. Wherever you feel somebody else has a better strength, that can be a partner to your work and you can take it forward. Where I would like to emphasize is that you need to ensure that you need to keep your ego aside. It can't be your own ownership or leadership that should precede over everything else. When you're working together, you're all working in it. Somewhere, if it's your idea, you can take it forward as, yes, the first among equals, but others are also as much partner to this entire implementation, because it's like a car. You have four wheels. So without one wheel, then it becomes an auto rickshaw, and the value of that vehicle suddenly drops down. You can't really say I've got three wheels, so it's still a car. It's not. There's something incomplete. So every wheel has its own importance. Yes, you are the one with the steering wheel, but without those four wheels, that vehicle really ceases to have a meaning. Can we have the next slide? So, uh, well, I think I preempted whatever was this in the slide, what I was talking about. While absence of ego is very critical, what your strength, you need to identify what you can bring to the table. There's possibility at times that something that you may bring to the table is much weaker than what somebody else has brought to the table, and it's then should be your ego taking a backseat to say, okay, why don't you be a leader in this space? So open it up to other people to say, okay, let's take it forward, and um, and move forward on that. Move forward, please. Yeah, so this is something which a lot of people have often asked me, that okay, maybe my background in journalism, that may have helped in things that I've done. Um, the slides are not visible to some people, but there's this slide which talks about, I'll just read out what it says, that if an organization doesn't have these connections and resources, how can we aspire to do something like this, even on a slightly smaller scale? Not every organization has connections. Not even Project Mumbai has all the connection. Okay, it's a chicken and egg. We worked hard, and in some spaces connections happen. I shared something at the very early stage about lateral connectivity. Each one has lateral connectivity, has different sets of connections. Plus, there's a kindness element in everyone. Third, there are good people everywhere. So what you need to do is hard work and the networking part. For instance, if I'm in the space of education, I may be a very small organization in the space of education or healthcare or nutrition or gender equality. What I need to do is, at least I need to know who are the people who are going to or likely to help me scale up in this space. It could be a government officer. Please remember, governments are a very important space in scalability. Okay, it's important to go and meet people in the government to explain to them the work that you're doing. You may or may, as long as you're able to tell your story in a short way and convince, and you are aware of your own story also, then things can move forward. And that particular person may not be able to understand what you're doing, but once he likes your idea, you can utilize his services to connect you to other people. Not every person that we now deal with or interact with in the government are people whom we knew. But if I know one person or two people, and then they appreciate the work that we are doing, we go to them again and say, you know what, we're doing something in the space of vaccination. Can you guide us to maybe in this space? And they will connect us to, they have connected us to XYZ area, and we've gone ahead and done something in that space. Or from there, they've connected us to people in the accessibility space, and we started work in the accessibility space, and so on and so forth. So today, we can proudly say that, and from there we moved into environment. From environment, we moved into gardens, and from gardens, we helped started setting up libraries in gardens. But the point that I'm trying to make is, as each idea starts flowering, we break up each idea, like we did with the station project. Break up even the library project. Was there's somebody who goes and gets libraries, there's somebody who gets collects the books, there's somebody who tabulates the books, there's somebody who maps the gardens, and that way you spread the word out to say, okay, who among you can do that? I'll give you a very interesting example of scalable initiatives that we've done. We have a project called Naksha. Okay, the Naksha is about mapping Mumbai's roads, and this is something which any of you can do in your city as well. There could be, let's say, a Raghunandan Road, because, or a Clare Road, or a Naji Road, or a Neha Road. Now we all know, let's say, MG Road in our city, or a Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru Road in our city, and we know who the person is. But 99% of the roads, we don't even know who these people are. Now we got citizens to say, can you go to the closest road that you live in or you work, and get the history of that road, jot down the history, verify the history. So the idea was broken into such a granular manner that there was a group of specialists who were verification experts, history students who started verifying data. There were a bunch of students who had time, who could gather the data. There's somebody else who tabulated the data. So you look at how much more can I break it down into, and then you as a team leader can tabulate the whole thing and put together a story. What's important in scalability of any initiative is, can I simplify the volunteering effort for every individual as much as possible? If you are sitting in Chandigarh and if I say, you need to go to Shimla, you'll say, oh God, who's going to go to Shimla? But if I say, in Chandigarh, this is what you need to do. Or if even in Bombay, in the same city, the moment I ask you to go 20 minutes away and 30 minutes away, your likely level of resistance will be much high. The moment I create a much smaller geography or footprint of your energy to say, can you be the custodian of the 100 meters where you live or where you work? And this is what we expect you to do. Then your opportunity of people coming forward would be much higher. I'm opening up this to questions right now. This slide that I've always spoken about, that uh, the point one, hard work and contacting and networking is very, very high, has to be very high. But peacetime networking has to be there. We always reach out to people when we need them. And then once the work is over, we forget them. I think it's important we should start being in touch with people, um, irrespective of whether we need them or not. And that's how they come to know of the work that you're doing. Sometimes they will reach out to you and say, okay, listen, will you do this for us? And that's how your work will spread. There are good people everywhere. And if you're not cut out for it, look for such people. Somebody else is a specialist. I'm opening this up to questions also, please.
Thanks. Can we please put in our questions in chat? Shishir, can I stop sharing? I have a few questions that I
Please, please, yes.
so some of the questions very to the very basic that people go in when we ask people in the feed in the registration form, what are some questions for that they would want to ask. One was, how do you get people to come on ground? So you'll plan a huge campaign, large campaigns, you'll do a lot of partnerships, but to get so many people on ground on a specific day or a time, there are thousands of reasons why people cannot be there at the same time. How do you do that? What was the magic trick for that?
So the magic trick is to one, simplify the need uh, into a very granular form. The moment I say I need somebody to let's say I'm doing a food program, food distribution program. If I say, okay, we are doing a food distribution program and we need volunteers. Now the question 9 on 10 people say is, I would like to, but I don't know what to do in this. Okay. It's like if I were to volunteer and somebody says that, we are going to be screening a film for the less privileged children and we need volunteers. Now, I would say, but isme mera kya kaam hai? Okay. What do I need to do in this? But the moment I break up the idea to say, I am doing a screening for children from a community, I need somebody who can take the children. I need somebody else who can sit with the children. I need somebody who can do XYZ, or I need somebody who can make a small AV on the whole thing and stuff like that. Or I need somebody who can sponsor snacks. The moment I break it up into 5, 10 different things, somebody might say, listen, I can do this. Or somebody will say, you know what, I've got chocolates. Somebody else says, I'm a storyteller and I've got younger siblings, they'll do that. So if you simplify the scenario, more and more hands will go up, and each one who's being part of it will say, I can get somebody else also. And please do remember that also, when you're making an offering, am I hung, I think? Or can you
No,
hear me?
no. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. So um, always there should be a call to action to say, please tell us what can you do. Very often when we volunteer, we tell people that this is what you should do. But I think it's always nice to ask, what else can you do? Sometimes you'll be surprised that volunteers will come up with such fantastic ideas that your entire concept will be on its head and it will become even more exciting. We tend to tell, we forget to ask. We tend to talk, we forget to listen. So I think listening would be a very important space, listening to your volunteers to say, you tell me what did you like or what did you not like, and then you try to bring it into. So if I say that, tell me what else can you do, and if you like it, would you like to bring somebody else as well? There you'll have somebody who likes it will get somebody else onto that space also.
Right. Thanks.
Shishir,
So,
please turn on your camera.
Sorry, your voice is not clear.
Shishir, just turn on your camera, please.
Hello.
yeah, Shishir, can you turn on your camera now? You're wondering. Would
Yes,
love
I'm
to
turning
see
it
you
on.
now.
Yes, my
Yes.
camera's on.
Yes. Little hang up though, but yes. Thanks. So next question that I have with a lot of people following up on it is, how do you get repeated volunteering to happen? How do you get people to come back week on week?
So it's like I think somebody asked me about the analogy of a rickshaw, but I'd give a example of food, which we all love. You go to a restaurant if you like the food. Okay, so it's important that the food is nice, and that food is nice not only because I taste it and I like it. I cook food. I love to eat whatever rubbish I cook. But the moment I cook and I serve it to people and I ask them, what did you like? More importantly, what did you not like in it? Then they'll say, इसको आप अगर थोड़ा नमक इसमें ज़्यादा डालते, बटर चिकन में थोड़ा और बटर डालते, then I might say, okay, this is interesting. So that feedback becomes very, very important. Okay, and the willingness to ask people, okay, what else would you like to make it more interesting? Then it's like, I'm sure all of you have eaten poha, but poha in itself you cook can be just a little bit of haldi and salt. The moment you go towards Karnataka, you have grated coconut in poha. You go towards Nagpur. I know it's hunger time in the evening, but the more you go towards Nagpur, you'll have fried peanuts in that poha. You go towards Rajasthan, they'll put some save in the poha. It's still poha, but you made that poha interesting enough. So can I make that offering interesting enough for somebody to say, I'd like to come back to you? And why do people say, yaar, wahan jaake khao? That's a far better place. Or that's a far better, interesting initiative. I liked it, so I go back to that place. So then hands go up, and not only the hands go up, they take other people also along with them.
Right. Uh, Thanks. Then there's a question on, how do you tap into people's kindness? You said that everybody has a kindness element, but how do you tap into it?
So, I'll answer two questions that Sonia has asked this question. What is the role of social media in starting a movement?
Yes.
That tapping into kindness there is kindness in everyone. It's just that they don't know where to go about it. Like 93 people right now are on. If I were to ask each one of you, would you like to do something? First of all, I will not be able to reach out to each one of you personally. Social media plays a very important role. You need to create better stories and let people know. Trust me, word goes around. I'll give a simple example that uh, when I read a newspaper and go to a Kala Ghoda festival, for instance, okay, in Mumbai, which is a good festival, or in every city there's something interesting that takes place. I read a newspaper article and I go to that festival. But the moment I go there, I like something and I come back. Okay, but do I really tell the newspaper that, boss, you wrote about it, that's why I went there? We don't. Very often we 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 don't even tell the person who's initiated something that because of you I went there and I like something. So impact is happening despite you not knowing it. Okay, so uh, try to put it out. Word of mouth goes out. People like it. If they like it, they'll spread the word out. So impact is taking place. There are people who will tell somebody. For instance, each one of us is on WhatsApp. The amount of videos we get, which is unrelated to our work, is why they've liked it and they spread it out. So you need to make the story interesting enough for somebody to say, oh wow, I may not be part of it, but I will say, you know what, Megha, there's something that you mentioned last time about books. Here's these bunch of people who are setting up libraries. So take this forward. You might be interested. You will say, I don't really have any books, but I think I have my niece who got books from her school days. Let me pass it on to her. So social media becomes a very important space to create that outreach. You may not have a very wide social media network, but anything more than one is also a great number. You send it to one and tell them that can you please pass the word around. It's important to use the word please, and it's important to smile, because you never know how much more that can reach out to different people.
Thanks. Thanks.
Sir, I have a quick question. Sorry, I'm cutting through, but I joined this meeting late, which I really wanted to join in the beginning itself, but I've joined late. So may I get your name, sir?
Okay, my name is Shishir Joshi, and you're on a volunteering discussion in case you came onto the wrong group also.
Yes,
So,
sir. I'm aware about the
just in
volunteering
case.
discussion. And how do we connect with you if we need?
Okay, so what I'll do is Megha can put in my number out here and my email ID. My email ID is shishir@projectmumbai.org. My number is 98200
This video lag.
Sir, I lost you.
That's okay, ma'am. We'll share it.
Yes, that would be wonderful. Sharing his number or another source of connection would be great. And thank you.
Yeah, I'm not able to who's speaking. Sorry. Ma'am, I'm not able to figure out who's speaking.
This is Niruba. Niruba.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Yes, I'll share the slides and transcript, and we'll share his email address as well. Yes. Shishir, I'll just check if Shishir is available.
Three, if you can that, very, very important. And
Shishir, we
and
lost
the
you for a
second,
bit.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. We'll share your phone number and your details.
Correct.
Yeah, we'll move on to the next question from Sneha, which I think is very important. Is how do you backdate your operations for an upcoming campaign? What should be the timeline, and how the logistics for the upcoming campaign? How do you plan that?
So a simple philosophy is you live and learn, and you learn and live. So there's never a right formula for everything. Okay, when we started off with our Mumbai Plastic Recyclathon, so there's a certain level that if I'm hungry, if I have to eat a meal at 12 o'clock, you can't start cooking at 11:30. Correct? You might start cooking at 11:30, and then you get it wrong that your food is ready only by 2 o'clock. Okay, then the next time you say that okay, I need to start cooking a little earlier. So you live and learn, and then you learn and live. Okay, let's say plastic recycling, or if I'm collecting plastic on the 30th of every month from citizens, and if I tell them only at the 29th, then I've got it wrong. So I may do it maybe 15th, then some people would say, you should have told us a little earlier. So next time onwards, you do it maybe a week before that, and then you gradually start getting it right.
I can't hear you, Shishir.
So that's one part of it. Based on that, how do I reach out to social media? Try to keep telling your story, and that's how you start moving on.
Right. So there's a question from Ghazal on what funding options are available for large public campaigns like the ones mentioned, government, corporates, individuals. Yeah.
So, funding will always remain a challenge, but people fund not a project, but they fund a good idea. Always remember that. So, are all big projects of Project Mumbai funded? They are not. Okay. But if you do it smartly, and again, funding can also be broken up into smaller pockets, then let's say if I need 100 rupees for a project, if I go to somebody and say I need 100 rupees, he might be reluctant. But if I break up that same idea, like in volunteering, I broke it up into several heads. You do this much, you do that much, then I get more people, I get more energy, and I get more enthusiasm. And similarly, for instance, the Hamara station, Hamari Shan, we broke up. So I may need 100 rupees, but if 60 rupees of that 100, I can get a pro bono support in different forms. Somebody is giving me paint, so my paint cost has come down. Somebody is giving me brushes. There's somebody says I'll provide the snacks. So your cost has come down. And manpower is a huge cost. If I manage to get volunteers, then a lot of my manpower gets cut down. I need artists, and if I look around and say, can I get some artists? So my trained artist cost comes down. Similarly, each of these initiatives, and then you go out and try to tell a good story. Now, there's somebody who did ask to say, I may not be a good articulator of stories. please put the word out. You might get somebody who would say, I'm a good storyteller. I'd like to give my time to tell a story. I know I'm making it sound very easy, and it's not. Sometimes it's very tiring, but what is not tiring? Even sitting at home doing nothing sometimes is tiring. So you will need to keep trying things out till you get it right, and then keep talking to different people who will guide you into what went wrong, and you also learn from your own mistakes.
Right. Can you also answer on how can people run such campaigns in rural areas where the connectivity may not be as good as a place like Mumbai, and how would the logistics differ there?
Yeah, it links back to one of my answers earlier. The structure of a plan doesn't change. Now, I'm doing something in Mumbai. First of all, if I want to do Hamara Station, Hamari Shan in Gadchiroli district, will it succeed? No, because trains is not a concept there. Okay, so I need to know whether that idea would work there or not. Second, I need to know of the specialist in that space. If I'm sitting in Mumbai and trying to plan something in Gadchiroli, it's not going to work because I don't understand the geography. So, like in every initiative, I look for specialists who understand the space more than I do, and then I talk to that person to take it forward. Okay, so if it's Gadchiroli, get somebody in Gadchiroli. So, for instance, if it's Project Mumbai, if I have to do Project Chennai, it can't be Shishir sitting here and doing a Project Chennai. I need to talk to people in Chennai who understand Chennai better and say, okay, would you like to do this there? And let's take it forward. Similarly, the same idea. So for rural, where connectivity is low, then we talk to a specialist to say, how do you reach out to people? How do you talk to each other? There are different forms of communication. Use those forms of communication. It could be pamphlets, it could be newspapers, it could be word of mouth, it could be the local hospital, it could be the vegetable vendors. Use those vendors, use those networks too. But you need to tell a story. You need to know the story, and then when you know the story, you need to tell it more in a more interesting way. And for that, then maybe you get local language experts who can guide you into going about things. So language plays a very important role as well.
Yes, Sushil, I'm going to stop you for a second. I also want to run another poll to understand some more feedbacks from the people. So I'm launching one more poll. I'll also give you some breather, Sushi, to maybe have some water or look at some of the questions in the chat that we can look at. If all of you can please click on the poll option and fill in your polls, that would be very useful. I see zero responses so far.
So I'll answer one of these questions here. What if the volunteers didn't turn up for the campaigns that you expected?
Yes.
Which is bound to happen. So there should always be a plan B. Plan B is to, if the volunteer doesn't turn up, you can't put a gun to their head to say that that's not volunteering. That's extortion.
Yeah.
Okay. So volunteers are likely not to turn up. And which is where you need to think that, okay, what if they don't turn up? For instance, what if I don't get funding? What do I do in a situation like that? So then you need to take things forward in a certain way and say, okay, what do I do if they don't turn up? What do I do if they don't get funding? What do I do
Okay, I think that's Shishir is still here. Okay.
Yeah, I'm connected again. Yeah, I think there's a
That's
poll that you need to.
you can back the point. This I see the half the people have filled in the form. Thank you. If all of us can fill in the form, uh, yes, we'll wait. Uh, sorry for this technical glitch. So one of the questions that is repeated is retention of volunteer is a challenge. How do you engage them? I think partly one of the answer is what Shishir mentioned is maybe delivering a good experience to people so they continue to retain. But I'll wait for him to join back to answer that. Uh,
To answer your question, retention, since I mentioned earlier, I think you need to make the story exciting enough. Also, you need to maybe, let's say, I've asked somebody,
Shishir,
her to do something. to join and volunteer. You volunteered, and the next time you've not come in. Can you hear me now? Is there a problem with my network?
Yes, we can hear
you
you
hear me?
now. I just didn't know which question you're answering. Sorry.
I'm answering the retention of volunteers. The retention of
Yes.
volunteers to say, one, I should make the proposition interesting enough, and second is I should ask the volunteer what is it that's not making you come back. And then the volunteer says, I didn't come back because I didn't have time. Then rather than saying, okay, I could ask, how much time do you have? And then utilize that volunteer for something else. He could give you time for scripting. He could give you time for scripting. He could give you time for maybe something else in the space of the project that you're working on. He could just sit at home and make calls for you. So ask, give options to the volunteer. If you go to a restaurant and say, um, I need to eat a masala dosa, and the restaurant says masala dosa nahi hai. Does the owner say, okay, go now? He'll say, but can I offer you something else? आप उत्तपा खा के देखिए, आप बड़ा खा के देखिए. He doesn't want the customer to go. So you need to ensure that your customer is there all the time. Give him different options. He is volunteered, which is a huge thing. Get him to taste as much as possible, but end of the day it's volunteering. If he says I don't want to volunteer, I don't like you, that's a different issue.
Right. Yes, there's one. There are multiple questions, and I'm also pitching in my own questions. So one of the questions I feel like in most of us in volunteering feel is the certificate, especially with young people with different demographic when you're engaging, and when you're saying that let them do whatever they want to do. So if somebody is not available for a 6-hour program that you're offering a certificate for, but is only available for 1 hour. I see Punita very happily agreeing to me, so I know I'm tapping into a question that a lot of us feel with. What do you do then?
So, very simple. Since IPL is going on, I'll give you an IPL example. The bowler is coming to get you out, and the batsman has to hit a six. Does the batsman says, okay, because the bowler wants to get me out, I will get out? No, the batsman has to do what he wants to do. You have to run your program. So you have to convince the funder to say, why this is exciting enough for you to invest, and then work. You don't have to lie. You need to be transparent. You need to be honest. You need to be very clear. So you explain to the funder to say what is it in it that's exciting from your perspective, and then ask the funder, okay, what do you think you may like out of it? He may not like the entire thing. Let's say I'm doing a school program on mental health and I need somebody to fund my program. He says, no, I can't. This is too huge a cost. Maybe I say, is it that mental health doesn't interest you as a subject? He says, no, that subject interests me, but I am only interested in the gender part. Then you curate it to say, okay, will you be able to fund the girl child um, within this space, or within that you can only look at children from Goregaon who are from this school. So you need to try to reinvent yourself to keep the interest level of the donor alive. It's in your interest, because if you are going to say I'm not interested, then the story is over.
Right. So I was talking about certification as well, Shishir. It's offering certificates or rewards to volunteers. Moving on to another question, and you can see if you want to answer both or how do you want to do it. Is when you're engaging multiple people, what do you do when there are conflicts within people or different people's different timelines don't match in because you're engaging so many stakeholders together for a large scale campaign?
So in a situation like that, you look at what's best possible. Please remember, it's volunteering. Having said that, it's also discipline. If somebody has volunteered, doesn't mean he can come in and go at his free will. He will do that. But at the outset, lay down the ground rules that, this is the project. We expect this much time, energy, commitment from you, and explain why we need this much time and commitment. Because if you don't turn up, somebody else will lose out, and we are depending on you. So it's a moral obligation and a give and take. So once the volunteer understands the whole thing, please, it's like, please read the offer document carefully. So that's where it is. There has to be an offer document for the person to read it. So explain to them that this is what you need to do, and then take it forward. And then after that, if somebody still ditches you or opts out, that still is that person's ethic at play. But you need to be very clear, and for that you need to start planning. And this will happen as you live and learn. Sometimes you will get it wrong, sometimes, and then you kind of incentivize the person. What is it? Again, ask the question. What is it that you would want? said, I'd like a certificate. And if it's there within the parameters of your whatever, everybody likes to be a hero. There is a hero in everyone. Make the person a hero to say, we are so proud of what you've done. Give them that honor. And then so that he comes back. That's another way of retaining volunteers also. There are students who like credit points. Give them those credit points if you can. There are students who want their teachers to know. Drop in a mail to the school to say your students who are lovely. But I'm not saying you should lie. I'm not saying you should fib. But I'm saying that you need to think of asking them what is it that you would like and get them excited. आपको क्या पसंद आया, the feedback form which you go to a restaurant is a great feedback form for volunteering also. What is it that will get you come back?
Yes, thanks. Mentioning the feedback, I'm also going to send you guys a feedback form to fill in. Thank you, Shishir, for plugging in that in. But there's a question from Bitopi that I missed out is how to make online large-scale campaigns engaging and exciting. So on ground, you can facilitate, you can do a lot more. But how do you do that when it's online? Any inputs on that?
No, I didn't get your question clearly.
Yes, my question is that how do you get online volunteering more exciting and engaging? Shishir here.
Sorry, I'm back here. Yeah. I think the strategy for online is no different from on ground. You just need to look at what is it that interests them. When it comes to online, the language has to be interesting enough. And you know you need to be aware that online a lot of people will say something, but not necessarily mean it. For instance, a lot of people would say that you loved this session today, but not necessarily that you would mean it. Okay, so there's no way that you can guarantee what is said and what is done. But in that sense, you need to create as many different forms of outreach. The liberty of the opportunity of scale in online is much more, because what you write and spread across can go to multiple communities, which is beyond the geography limits.
Right. There's a question from Gopi. Every corporate funder has their own thoughts on how their employees should engage. Do you stand firm and say this is how we do things, or do you convince them to sync, or do you convince them to sync with your view? If the latter, how do you convince them? It's in the chat box also, Shishir. If I wasn't very audible.
Yes, I saw that. I read that. So I think it links to the funding thing also, that people will come with their own thoughts. If it doesn't go with your ethic, I think opt out of it. Recently, I did have a ethical issue with one of these organizations which was ready to fund, but they wanted an arm and a leg and their own whatever that. Even if you like during COVID, there was an organization said we will give you money. We don't really. You can send us all kinds of pictures as if you've actually done it. We returned the money. We did not
Lost them again. Sorry.
going through. Um, so people will come with their own ideas. You need to be clear what your ethics are, and if it works for your ethic, you need to go forward on that. We
Right.
need to convince them to sink in with our view, but sometimes they may have interesting ideas, and you may listen to them and sink in with their views also. So that openness to sink has to be there. It can't just be my way or the highway.
Right. So somebody wants you to maybe clarify more on how do you ensure people show up for the campaigns and how many confirmations. Like, so I mentioned for a webinar, we know that we should expect a double confirmation based on some of the failed webinars or successful webinars. How do you ensure, or how many volunteers do you plan for when they actually show up to be 25,000 or up to 50,000?
So generally, the math is always three-fourth of the number. So if we're looking at getting 50, then we at least need to reach out to 75 or 100. But it's not just this number. It has to be, the idea has to be exciting enough for people to come in. You know, and then there are certain like weather conditions and so on and so forth, where you know that things could change, and people will drop out. So you need to be mindful of other people's needs. I want to do this on this Sunday, so I should do it. No. Do you think that it's a Navratri taking place, so people are going to be busy in the Navratri festivals in the night. So unlikely that they're going to come in the next morning. So you need to be mindful of the other person's requirements and needs also before you plan something else.
Right. Sneha, I hope the question was answered. Volunteers are sign up for the program, but not turned up for the orientation and for the event. I think
I
that's
think it's all about how do you push the volunteers. We cannot push, but we can only try to persuade them in convincing language. So I think I've answered this question in that sense. I think the please always helps. Please remember that it's volunteering. It's not extortion or a threat. So make it exciting enough for them to say, this is why, this is what the best thing is. Aap khao varna, ye varna doesn't work in volunteering.
yeah. I will take like a few seconds and share an examples. In my college, one time I was managing a volunteering program, Shishir, about saying please. And they wanted 300 people to show up, and they expected that although people have showed up for the orientation, they may not show up at 4 a.m. to volunteer. And I heard that somebody actually told volunteers that because you have signed up an acknowledgement and sent out email that you'll come up and volunteer, we'll file a police complaint against you if you didn't show up. And I had those college students, first year students, actually scared that if you're not able to show up at 4 a.m., what is going to happen. And I think about how they actually treated volunteers, and I don't know, something similar to extortion only. But yes, saying please works. I'm sharing a feedback form for people. This also has the link to joining our WhatsApp group, EIB WhatsApp group, if in case you want to stay in touch with the community, get alerts about these webinars, connect with more people like Shishir and his team. You can fill in the form and also share feedback for it. And if you have more questions, Shishir, if you have more inputs to share, we're still here. Just wanted to pin a feedback form which will help us enhance the sessions, help us stay connected, and maybe add it to the WhatsApp group. Dharmaraj, Venkat, if you have anything to add. Sonia, if you have any questions for us.
No, I think it's been fascinating, absolutely, Megha. And I've been in the space of purpose branding for a long time, and exactly the three things that Shishir said were bang on. When you want to start a movement, you must pick the right fight. That's rule number one. Then the rule number two is you tell the story well. And then rule number three is then scale the participation. And so it's been a wonderful validation of what I know, and very grateful, Shishir, for that.
Yes. Thanks, Shishir, for
Thank you,
providing
everyone.
your email address.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for listening to me. And thank you for staying on. And I'm hoping that all those who have listened would volunteer with Project Mumbai. Um, well, I can only ask. I can't threaten you all. But I promise you I'll make it exciting enough. And of course, Megha, thank you very much for being so persuasive, for making me feel special that it's been a never before kind of a long list of people who wanting to listen. But it's a subject which is interesting, and I hope you all succeed. And let me make it very unconditional. Anytime you need any help from Project Mumbai, we're more than happy to help.
Yes, I have one more
Thank you.
question for you, Shishir. Sorry,
Yes.
not letting you go so soon. Is how to start any mass initiative if you are single, not attached to any organization, but you have a motive.
How to start any mass initiative if you're single, not attached to anything. I think then the best thing is to reach out to Project Mumbai. Will help you out. Organizations always help because they help you reach out to different spaces. And of course, there are so many good people and good organizations everywhere. Reach out to an organization, which always helps. The power of plenty is there. There are good organizations. So good organizations will need single people like you who want to do something. So you become a volunteer with them, and that organization will volunteer with you. So it has to be a give and take.
Okay. Thanks. In case you have more questions, please feel free to put in.
I think they can write into me also. My email ID and number I've given. They can write into you all also, and they should volunteer. Our volunteering platform is also there. We are more than happy to help.
Thanks, Shishir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Sorry,
Thank you.
Shishir, there's more
Thank
question.
you.
I'm sorry. Is
Okay,
there
volunteering opportunities need not be full time. We ask people how much time. We've created weekend volunteering opportunities. We can say volunteering from home, volunteering physically stepping out. Uh, you can do different ways to volunteer. By people can volunteer being physically present, even so many different ways. Volunteering is just about the thought that I want to volunteer is in itself a great volunteering. To tell people that you should volunteer is also a great amount of volunteering. So volunteering is not about going out and doing something for physically.
and if you're looking for more
Thank you.
volunteering opportunities, yeah, thanks, Shishir. Maybe checking out social media, connecting with organizations like Connect For can also be helpful uh, for volunteering opportunities. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
again.
Thanks, Shishir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dhanraj, can we stop recording?